Good morning, everyone. Happy Easter, one and all. Michael, that was beautiful. Vivaldi's season series, Springtime. It was beautiful. Wonderful music to start the service. Thank you, Michael. Welcome to the gathering at Northern Hills on this Easter Sunday. It's a beautiful day out. Welcome to everybody who's online on Zoom. We're glad you're with us. And glad for everybody, happy for everybody to be here in the sanctuary as well. Thank you for attending. It's good for me to be here. And as I wind down, sadly, to some of my last Sundays, each one I cherish. So anyway, I have a few announcements. Next Sunday, I will be here again talking about climate change. Not necessarily an Easter-related message, but certainly topical for today. The next announcement is the UU Council of Greater Cincinnati is sponsoring a collaborative Zoom-based discussion circle, and it is on race and racism in Cincinnati, its history, and also present and future actions that can be taken. If you're interested, you can register with Linnea Los, whose email is in your programs. It begins on, I think, sometime next week, next Monday, I believe, April 25th. So you should certainly email Linnea if you're interested in attending. About our auction, stay tuned. An announcement will be coming in the next day or two. Is that correct, Betsy? Probably. So yes, stay tuned for that. There's a further announcement in your about the book club. You can take a look at that and upcoming books that will be read each month, and your attendance is welcome. Let's see here. Some of these other announcements are older. Let's see. They are looking for volunteers and people who would like to participate in the annual Pride celebration. Will be held in June every year. Our own MJ Pearson coordinates that effort, and anybody who's interested in volunteering to station the booth that is all 5 Cincinnati UU churches have for that, you are welcome to contact MJ or simply just put it on your calendar as an event to attend. Next Sunday, GNH member will be remembered in a memorial service at Spring Grove Cemetery, John McLeod. For those of us who knew and loved John, this would be a nice event to attend if you are able. It will immediately follow next Sunday's service. It starts at 1 p.m., so likely you'll need to leave shortly after the end of next Sunday's service. I'll be co-officiating at that, and hopefully any of you can attend as well. And then a little bit over a month from now, former NHF member Victor Sukup will be memorialized in a service here at GNH. It will be at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, May 14th. I'll be officiating, and there will be several of you who have some thoughts about Victor. I unfortunately never had the privilege to meet Victor, but encourage your attendance at that as well. And last but not least, some joyous Easter news regarding some thoughts and prayers. 3 of the individuals I have listed there for thoughts and prayers. It's an Easter miracle. They are out of the hospital and doing well. You've always been a miracle, Bob, and I'm so glad you're here and out of the hospital. Paul Miles, like as well, is home and out of the hospital, as is Sue Klein's wife, Linnea Los. She was in the hospital for a few days, but is now home and recovering. And of course, keep Debbie Palmisano and Andy Rotterman in your thoughts and prayers. That's it for announcements. Again, thank you for being here, and thank you, Michael, for the prelude music. My only opening words are, let us just celebrate this day of certainly spring, and also what Easter might mean for each of us, and hopefully there will be some thoughts about that this morning. I'll light the chalice now. And as we know, our chalice for Unitarian Universalists is a symbol of our pursuit of truth and knowledge, and seeking for each of us our own path to greater spiritual enlightenment. I'll now light the chalice.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
We now have the opportunity to listen to some more beautiful music from Michael, and actually contains the word beauty. For the Beauty of the Earth, a hymn in our Singing a Living Tradition hymnal, and Michael will sing and play this. I don't have the number there. Michael, do you have the number?
It's number 21.
721, if you'd like to pull it up in your hymnal, but otherwise we can listen and enjoy Michael's music. For the Beauty of the Earth.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Thank you. And if you'll please now join me as we recite this congregation's unison affirmation. We pledge to create a welcoming community that celebrates human diversity, encourages spiritual growth, fosters responsiveness to our world, and commits to the future of all children. My message this morning is entitled Discovering the Real Jesus. Now, one of the primary characteristics of my own personal spirituality is an admiration and indeed a love for the man named Jesus. And that often surprises or can even annoy some people. For them, an open-minded Unitarian Universalist minister is not someone who should like Jesus. At least some people think that. Indeed, when I speak about him, I sometimes sense discomfort. But sadly, the real Jesus, the man who almost assuredly lived and died and taught remarkable things, he's been kidnapped by today's fundamentalist Christians. And he's been replaced by a self-righteous, I believe, fake Jesus, who can seem to support violence and anger and arrogance and intolerant judgment of others and even misogyny. That false Jesus is not liked by caring and open-minded people. And unfortunately, those people often think false Jesus is the real one. They don't know the kidnapped Jesus that's found in the most accurate biblical descriptions of him. And that's because ministers, both fundamentalist and open-minded, don't like to talk about the real Jesus. Open-minded ministers like me often fear they'll be labeled a closet liberal just for talking about him. And fundamentalist ministers don't talk about him because they fear being labeled a liberal. And so the real Jesus, instead, he was a man who promoted equality, nonviolence, compassion, and attributes like forgiveness and empathy and gentleness. And that man, as many of us believe, was the exact opposite of persons that are celebrated by many of today's fundamentalists. The real Jesus was a peaceful activist who challenged the religious and political and economic elites of his time for their hypocrisy and their love of power and money. He would challenge such people today, I believe, and that Jesus, I also believe, well, as we know, was executed for his beliefs 2,000 years ago, and I believe, 100% positive, he'd be executed for them now. So the Jesus, however, was also clearly not a God. And indeed, in the three earliest accounts of his life, those found in the Bible, the books named Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus never claims to be God. It was only after his death that he was made a God by his grief-stricken followers. So by stripping away many of the things that can never be proven about him, like his performance of miracles or his resurrection from the dead, we can find a distinctly human figure with character flaws like everyone. He had fears and doubts and anger and frustrations, just like anyone. And even so, he was a remarkable man who understood the heart of what it means to be a loving and good person. The goodness, Jesus claimed, is not about obeying religious rules and appearing to be a decent person. Interestingly, today marks the convergence, it's a very rare occurrence, the convergence of three major religious holidays, those of Muslim Ramadan, Christian Easter, and Jewish Passover. Events that can symbolize for each of their followers, it symbolizes each of those religions. But Jesus taught a different way to be good. He saw through some religious people's hypocrisy by trying to appear to be persons they're actually not. Some of them, he said, like to give money to charities so that others know about it. Or they like to act spiritual or concerned about the poor to appear enlightened. But inwardly, they can be greedy or even hateful. Some others judge people for their supposed misdeeds, even though those who judge secretly also do things that are wrong. Jesus challenged people to not just do good things when others are watching, but to do good when nobody knows, to give anonymously, to serve humbly, to quietly empathize with the poor and the sick, and not just appear kind, but to be kind to everyone. As he said, too many people are like cups and dishes that outwardly appear all shiny and clean, but on the inside are filthy and crusted. He challenged people to be better not because they're inwardly unclean, but because they pretend they're not. As he taught, as the real Jesus taught, the path to honest goodness is not wide and easy. Anyone can follow that path. You just have to appear good. Instead, Jesus said the gateway to authentic goodness is very narrow and it's quite difficult. Very few people reach such perfection. But the ones who come the closest are those who admit they're not perfect, and they continually work to be better. He had little regard for those who think they're already good and have nothing to improve about themselves. There's no hope for them, he thought, because of their smug self-satisfaction. Instead, he believed that goodness is about being contrite and humble and honest enough to admit one's deficiencies. And as I said, to always or continually try to change for the better. And that reminds me of a well-known saying. Churches don't exist to be museums of self-righteous saints. They were established instead to be symbolic hospitals for the broken and the hurting and the imperfect. And so on this Easter Sunday, I want to do my small part to resurrect the supposedly or the so-called kidnapped Jesus, the Jesus you perhaps never knew. In doing so, I hope you'll want to learn more about him. Now, perhaps the most astonishing quality about the real Jesus was his counterintuitive teachings about love. He taught that love is not just about loving one's partner or child or parent or best friend or people who think like you. That love is expressed by everyone. Even Hitler loved his wife and his supporters. Jesus instead challenged us to a much more difficult love. As he said, quote, "Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Do good to those who hate you. And pray for those who use or persecute you." End quote. And lest anyone try to piously claim, well, I love my enemies, Jesus taught that real love has to be proven. It's not just spoken. We must be good to our enemies, helping them when they hurt, feeding them when they're hungry, or clothing them when they're naked. And we're also to bless our enemies by praising the inner good in them and forgiving them their misdeeds and constantly working to live with them in peace. And Jesus amazingly modeled that when he called out, while he was being tortured and executed, he called out, quote, "Forgive them, for they don't understand the bad that they're doing," end quote. And so if Jesus was alive today, I believe he'd ask us to love our enemies, like Russians or terrorists or racists or bullies or political opponents or murderers or hypocrites. And thinking about that teaching, we are likely astonished. How can we accept killers or bigots or liars or haters or cheaters or people who want to hurt us? Well, we can't, and we shouldn't, because that's not what Jesus taught. He called us to separate the person from their actions. We're, of course, asked to condemn bad actions, but nevertheless, to love everyone, enemies included, for their innate value, their innate dignity, and their innate goodness. Much, much like the Unitarian Universalist first principle. We must love without limits, no matter what someone does or who they are. And that means we may not like the person, and we may disagree with their actions and their beliefs, but the person, herself or himself, deserves to be valued for their humanity and good within them. And once again, if we ponder the implications of that teaching from the real Jesus, we likely shake our heads in disbelief, because it seems natural to want to hate evildoers. But we'll soon realize Jesus' teaching is the foundation of all spirituality. Whatever it is that we believe is a higher power, it is exactly what the real Jesus promoted: unconditional love. As the Bible emphatically says, and I quote here, "Beloved, let us love one another, because love is from God. Everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love." End quote. And so if we love without prejudice, if we do good to everyone, even our enemies, if we see love as a verb and not just a noun, we'll achieve the highest state of goodness. And I described in here 3 weeks ago Jesus' counterintuitive compassion and empathy for a woman who was caught in adultery, and another woman who had married and divorced 6 times, and a greedy rich man, and also a blind man who had been shunned and eliminated from society because the belief at the time that sick and disabled people must be terrible sinners to have their condition. All 4 of those people to whom Jesus showed love and poured out his attention to were considered at that time outcasts, people who supposedly deserved to be punished. But the real Jesus modeled the kind of empathetic love for them that many people then and now don't practice. And there are countless other examples of the real Jesus' amazing teachings and actions. He praised those who give money to charities, who are themselves poor. Such people donate a huge percentage of their money, proving their selflessness. Others who give much larger amounts but are already well off, well, they've sacrificed very little. And famously, on Good Friday, the first Good Friday, Jesus spoke tenderly to a thief who was being executed next to him. And instead of piously thinking himself better than this criminal, Jesus assured this man that he was loved by him and by God. Jesus equally met with and befriended other so-called dregs of society: prostitutes, addicts, robbers, tax officials who cheated average people, lepers, men who love men, non-Jews, the poor, and even despised Roman soldiers. His critics, like many people today, believed in guilt by association. But Jesus taught them another approach. Hate and judgment won't change people. Only love does that. And the Bible then describes how literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people flocked to see and hear the real Jesus. The Christians today will say that was because they wanted to see a miracle worker, someone who was a god. I believe instead his popularity was due to his empathy and his compassion for the other able, the sick, the sinner, the addict, and the different. Jesus pointed out that many judgmental people not only have hearts full of criticism, but they themselves do sinful things. As he taught, we must stop judging others and instead take an honest look at ourselves. Don't point out the tiny speck in someone else's eye, he memorably said, when you have a log in your own. Let anyone who is totally perfect cast the first stone of condemnation at an alleged sinner, he also said. Just imagine what our culture would be like if me, you, everyone, focused on being better people ourselves instead of self-righteously criticizing others. As I said earlier, Jesus was defiantly anti-religious, but he was instead deeply spiritual. He was thousands of years ahead of his time in support of equality for everyone. He practiced equal treatment of women, non-Jews, and people with same-sex attractions. Evidence of his support for women is abundant. They comprised the majority of his followers. Women were his best friends and his closest confidants. And Jesus championed women primarily because he saw they were innocent victims of a hypocritical and straight male-dominant culture. And that culture was also hateful toward people with different religious beliefs. Roman pantheists, Samaritan mystics, and persons labeled as pagan. But instead of shunning those people, as was the common practice of his time, the real Jesus celebrated them for the inner goodness they had. People like a gay Roman who asked Jesus to minister to his male lover, or another Roman soldier at his execution who showed him compassion, or the Good Samaritan man in Jesus' famous parable, who was at that time despised in Jewish eyes because Samaritans were considered fake Jews. What Jesus did was remarkable for his time, just as it is remarkable for us today. How many religions then and now despise people who don't believe as they do? How many religions teach that non-believers are going to go to hell and treat them that way? How many world religions hate LGBTQ people? That tendency to dislike people who are different and supposedly flawed, that's within me. And I humbly suggest it may be within you too. But Jesus not only pointed out the hypocrisy of that attitude, he taught the higher way of love and empathy and compassion, as I said, for everyone, even for so-called bad and different people. And as he was implying, we're all bad or different in some way. But we're all nevertheless worthy of being shown understanding and respect and love. As he famously pointed out in his Sermon on the Mount, it's not the seemingly weak people of the world who lose, the gentle, the meek, the merciful, and the kind. Instead, as he pointed out, counterintuitively and ironically, they are the ones who eventually triumph. And so I commend the real Jesus to you as a person to learn more about. If you've never read the 4 books of the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I encourage you to do so and to read them in the New Revised Standard Version Bible, which is an English translation closest to the original language in which they were written. And after reading those 4 Bible chapters, I recommend reading any of 3 modern books for added insight and context, and I have them on the back of your programs. One by the famous Christian minister you may have heard of, and speaker Tony Campolo, his book entitled How to Follow Jesus Without Embarrassing God. Or Dominic Crossan, who's the founder of the Jesus Seminar that just tried to distinguish the real Jesus from the mythical one. Or another book by the well-known scholar Bart Ehrman entitled The Misquoted Jesus. Learning about Jesus and his teachings is not an academic exercise. It will instead help us know how to love enemies and friends alike. The real Jesus offers hope for humanity not because he's supposedly a God, but because his ideals are a blueprint for moving beyond the endless despair that's caused by human-made tragedies, war, violence, hatred, and selfishness. Lasting happiness doesn't come from those attitudes. When we hold anger, hatred, or selfishness inside of us, in our hearts, we paradoxically hurt ourselves because we're not at peace. It's a cliche to say this, but love is the answer. And so I say this without hesitation. I believe the real historical Jesus of Nazareth was and is the greatest person to have ever lived. What he taught and how he lived, if followed, would change everything. And so on this Easter Sunday, a day to honor the real Jesus, I wish you each much peace and joy. And I thank you for listening.
Name your price, a ticket to paradise. I can't stay here anymore. I've looked high and low. I've been from shore to shore to shore. If there's a shortcut, I'd have found it. There's no easy way around it. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free. Love is the answer. Who knows why someday we all will die? We're all hopeless boys and girls, and we are never heard. It's such a lonely, lonely world. People turn and walk on by. So is it worth just another try? Light of this world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free. Love is the answer. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free. Love is the answer. Are we alive? Just a dying planet. What are the chances? Ask the man in your heart for the answer. And when you feel afraid, love one another. When you lost your way, love one another. When you're all alone, love one another. When you're far from home, love one another. When you're down and out, love one another. When your hope run out, love one another. When you need a friend, love one another. When you need a hand, love, we got to love. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free. Love is the answer. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Light on us all, set us free. Love is the answer. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free. Love is the answer. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Shine on us all, set us free. Love is the answer.
Thank you, Michael. And now we have an opportunity to put our love into practice with sharing our wealth. This is the time in the service when those of us who call this place home can support the work we do. If you're a guest or visitor, please don't feel obligated to give. Just your presence here with us this morning is gift enough. But Becky, if you would maybe help me with passing the baskets, and let us now participate in a time of offering, our love offerings. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Tim. On behalf of the gathering in Northern Hills, we gratefully accept these gifts. Thank you. Michael, I think you can position a microphone there for sharing joys and sorrows. This is a time in the service that I liken to a time of prayer. We can raise up things that are heavy on our hearts or things we are celebrating about ourselves, about loved ones, about friends, or even total strangers. Let us now have a time of sharing joys and sorrows. For those of you who are online, please just signify, raise your hand or whatever, and we'll call on you. Thank you for joining us, all of you on Zoom. And those of you in the sanctuary, just come up to the microphone that Michael is setting up to share a joy or sorrow.
I'll start out here, just offer a thought for my uncle. He's in the hospital with, he just found out he has colon cancer, and it's been tough because so my mom and uncle came to America, and he was a lot older when he came to America than my mom, so he never really learned English all that well, and he's just having a rough time communicating with the doctors and everything. So we've been trying to help him out and everything. It's just been hard. So just to offer a thought or prayer for him. That's my Uncle Carlos. So
thank you, Michael. We send our thoughts and love to your family and to your uncle. Oh, Jack?
I'm looking the wrong way. Your pictures are all behind me, but I just want to, hi all you Zoom people. I just want to say hi to you all. We're glad you're here on Zoom, and oh, okay. Hey there. Robert and Koa and Mel and Andy and Ann and Ann. Sometimes I feel like trying to just bring these two groups together. So I know there's all kinds of reasons.
There's a bunch of others, we just don't see them.
Yeah, not being here this morning for all kinds of reasons that didn't work out, but I just kind of want to feel like bring us all together.
Thank you, Jack. That is a joy. As I said during the announcements, I do have Easter joys for that Bob Freer is out of the hospital and that he has his son here, Tom Freer, visiting him and helping him out.
It's MJ. Can you hear me?
Also that Paul Miles is out of the hospital, and that Sue Klein's wife is healing at home. So those are joys. Any others? Oh, I'm sorry.
MJ, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks.
You online?
I have
Andy?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have two things. First, my brother Art went to the emergency room and has been in intensive care for a couple of days. He's up in New York in Binghamton, and he's got a case of COPD that just laid him out. So I'm very worried about him, although he is starting to rally. He's younger than me, so it's kind of a shock. And then my son's car, Sean, I know it sounds crazy, but we have one car and he has to get to work with his car. And this car I would love to just shoot, but you can't get other cars now. And it's a fairly new car, but it is now in the shop and maybe in the shop for another week. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do about that. So please keep us in your thoughts and prayers.
Thank you, MJ. It's good to hear from you. Betsy?
I know that Brad Barron mentioned this not too long ago, but his son Luca is having a hard time right now, and Kimberly is going down to North Carolina to help out where Luca's in school. So please keep that family in your thoughts and prayers.
Thank you, Betsy. Tom, did you? Yes. Welcome. Yes, please. Tom Freer.
Thanks for having me. I'd like to acknowledge the community just because I know how much it means to my dad. So I appreciate that. And also healthcare workers. I mean, without exception, every single one that has been in our lives has been amazing and happy and hardworking. And I just want to thank anybody who's ever done that as a living. And I just really appreciate it.
That was a good word, Pop. Tom. Anyone else? Well, I'll drop a stone now in the water for anyone, any thoughts or prayers that have gone unsaid. Let's now close out our service with a closing hymn, Turn the World Around.
1074 in the teal hymnal. It's one of my favorites. Okay. I gotta remember how to play it. I'm sorry. 1 second. There it is. Nope. One more time. There it is. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Whoa, so is life about you. So is life. Whoa, so is life about you. So is life. What a water make the river, river wash the mountain, fire make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life a batiwa, so is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa, so is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa, so is life. Whoa, so is life a batiwa, so is life.
Great music as always, Michael, throughout the entire service. Thank you. That concludes our service. Just some closing words as the theme for this morning. Certainly go in peace, but also go in love. And of course, for friends and family and people that are dear to you, but more importantly, go the extra mile and show some love to someone you may not like that so much. Might just change their hearts. And if you wish, there's a symbol of love today, a Hershey's kiss. You can take that and give that to someone if you'd like up here on the altar. Anyway, thank you all for being here. Happy Easter.